In our group, Alan was the first fool. I was the second. We also have two other fools, Mr. Okuno and Mr. Martai, who were subsequently given their fool's caps. This cap has only been worn on very seldom occasions. Usually the indoctrination of a new fool into the order. There's one missing. Jeff in Seattle completes the set. This one that Alan requested is, like I said, it was written for him for his 45th birthday. It's called What to Do While Waiting for Death. You really should have come with me that day when I got up the gumption to drive to Monterey to hear Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Otis Redding, and Mama Cass. They needed you. Because of all of us, you could go nuts over music. You, the madman, feeling the beat of the loving spoonful so intensely that it could drown out your own madness, eyes closed, drumming complex ham-bone rhythms on your knee. I knew then what rock and roll meant because I could see it in you. You, the madman that followed the dancing lights on the bay. You waded out to the edge of too far to gather them up in your hands. You made us create sirens of our own to woo you back to land. You, the madman, must know that yesterday and tomorrow have some connection. When purple haze turns to local Oakland blues, blaring out in a passing BART train. We are all passengers, of course, but who on this train but you could find something good to say about Pasadena? Who else could be so amazed at the incessant regularity of hand-stitched seams? So, what if the majority of your incessant black hairs have gone gray? Can they claim in creeping clumps so many orange-red Berkeley sunsets, so many quiet nights with friends? Janice, Queen of the Blues, wherever you are, I call upon you to wail for my friend Alan. Wail for him, for he has many days ahead. Wail for him because while he's not hounded by the insane intensity, he has tamed some of it into wisdom. Wail for him because this man leaves good deeds behind in the paths that he treads. Yes, I know that he has broken some hearts, that he's screwed up some dreams, including many of his own, but baby, wail for him anyway because I've screwed up too, and you know you have too. Wail for him because the act of making something not to be is as important as the act of making something to be. This man, before he's done, will cause many things not to be. He will provide the implements for disease not to be. He will provide the means for accidents of birth not to be. He will, because he cares so much, cause many people's future pain not to be. Wail for him, Janice, because some of the mania is still there, and so is some of the ham-bone rhythm. 45 is not so damned old, my man. There's still time to thwart the Secret Service and pop off Nixon before he dies of natural causes. There's still time to find ways to share time with those who love you and with those you love. Those lights are still dancing out there, my man. Here, roll up this newspaper, stand out over the bay at sunset, and blow a long, long trumpet solo. As many of you know, Alan also had a decades-long bout with depression. He was actually a manic depressive and told me when I met him, when we were way back in high school in Pasadena, and I didn't know what a manic depressive really was at the time. But eventually I figured it out. This one is called My Friend Has Fallen Down a Well. My friend has fallen down a well. I try to get him to look upwards to the blue sky, and so do a number of his friends. The media is not interested in his plight, since it already gave national attention to a story like this, and the little girl had better demographics. Still, my friend makes the best of it. He has painted his portion of the well a kind of mango color and strung out small white lights to create a path to him when it's dark. His girlfriend goes down to visit him, and they have carved out a small space for living down there. He's created tunnels to the nearby market and begun to cultivate a small toothbrush garden out the back. Since it is in Berkeley, it is not so bad living at the bottom of a well. With our eyes opened, we soon realized that there were wells all over Berkeley and millions more across the country, each having a person at its bottom with or without a toothbrush garden. Still, it is the bottom of a well. Many times his friends have gathered at the well's openings and urged him to climb out. He says he appreciates our sentiments and that he would if he could, but he has fallen down a well. Now, the top of the well has become a social gathering point. His friends gather, sip white wine, and recall the times when he glowed with an aura of bright yellow light. I would say white light, but there was always a tinge, a discoloration, and somehow women found that to be particularly interesting. During those manic times, he would channel the Lovin' Spoonful songs about Coconut Grove or come across some simple but profound realization about the nature of things. We all encourage the return of that yellow light. We hope for it for ourselves almost as much as for him. We remind him that the sky is still blue, except when it is not. This is a very recent one. After the feature that I did at Sacred Grounds, I did another one in which I read the poem by Sachs about the 6 blind men and the elephant. It's a story that goes back to the 1st century BC in India, where 6 blind men tried to describe what an elephant really is, and one of the blind men's holding onto the trunk, and one is holding onto the tail, and one's up against the side of the elephant, and another is on his knee, and another is holding his ears and trunk. So you get these totally different tales from 6 different blind people. And I think in some senses, this is what we have gathered here this afternoon, because Alan was the elephant. We have the Neighborhood Association, the Ataxia Association, the English as a Second Language classes, old high school friends, fellow poets, members of the family. So I wrote this one for him called 6 Blind Men and Alan the Elephant. Some of you felt him like a spear. Some of you felt he was an ear. Some felt his tail so like a rope, and some of you thought he was a dope. Sometimes I felt he was a wall. Sometimes I thought he's 10 feet tall. Some of you felt he was a tree who lifted others to be free. Some felt him low like an honest snake who prayed the Lord his soul to take. On sunny days, he was a pagan who thumbed his nose at Ronald Reagan. To try to say what Alan was, it sets my mind to reeling. I only know the common thread in all of this is feeling. And this one, I wrote this week. It's called One Pack of Dues at a Time. You stupid bastard! You put a shotgun to your chest and pulled the trigger. Sure, it took the shotgun 50 years to go off, but it went off nonetheless. The American Tobacco Company needed those 50 years so they could collect all those dues from you. One pack of dues at a time, collected over the ages in exchange for bringing you a slight partial relief from the nervousness, the anxiety, for which they themselves were partly responsible. Yeah, I know that partly is the key word there. I know that there was the rest of the world and all its crap. and that innate chemical imbalance in which you were born. I always admired you for your struggle against that. When you were nearly dead, I asked you whether any of this was a surprise to you. Nah, you shrugged. Not at all. I asked you all how it all got started. Well, I came from a family of smokers, you said, as if predetermination was just one more straw than you could struggle against. 50 years of slight anesthetic to trade off against the 12 more years that you could have had struggling here in this plane of existence. You stupid bastard. You stupid fucking bastard. I loved you. I loved you in the greenness of our youth. When you asked me to drive you to Northern California because you had just had to kiss Margaret O'Malley's lips once again. I discovered that California is more than the paved-over desert that is Los Angeles. I discovered that Margaret had a friend, and as the four of us parked overlooking the sights of Santa Rosa, steaming up the windows, we made the Buick Special. I loved you in the days of the Flash Complex in Pasadena, when our party of poet warriors returned from a successful visit to Mexico and you rolled us a joint using an 8.5 by 11 sheet of notebook paper. I loved you when you discovered the Lovin' Spoonful. And in full mania, you came over to recite the lyrics word for word while drumming crazy ham-bone rhythms on your thigh. I loved you when I offered to take you with me to the Monterey Pop Festival. Oh, no, you couldn't. You had instead to rid your place of giant cockroaches that in your DDT dreams threatened to eat you while you slept. You said that one asked the other, shall we eat him here or take him home? We better eat him here, said the other. If we take him home, the big guys will get him. I loved you in the days of Tortilla Flat in San Francisco when you were still across the country. You introduced me to your ex-girlfriend who had come out here. She became the mother of my only child, who is the key to future generations, who I am ever so sure will save the world from driving over the cliff of its own ignorance. I loved you when you led the line of giant dancing condoms that handed a means of prophylaxis to the mayor in a parade in San Francisco, as if the mayor would ever use prophylaxis on anything, including his thoughts. I loved you on every April Fool's Day when you dressed up in a rainbow wig and blew bubbles at passing cars on Telegraph Avenue and University Avenue in Berkeley. I loved you wearing a fool's cap in the Sierra snows in the middle of winter, gathering of fools on the very spot where the Donner Party ate its own dead to survive. I loved you when you went into electric shock therapy in a decades-long quest to get your brain right. It turned out to be a matter of chemistry, and after all the rest of us had given up on you, you got it right and returned the full Alan to us in the final decade of your life. I loved that even with your battle with chemistry still raging, you rose above it all to go out and help others with their problems, helping with the neighborhood association, helping with the English as a second language class, and after you'd come down with it yourself, helping the Northern California Ataxia Support Group. But I loved you most of all for remaining a poet warrior for all these years, even when you felt that every person on earth, with the possible exception of Marie, had abandoned you. You moaned about our indifference like Jesus on the cross. You stupid bastard. You stupid fucking bastard. I loved you.